Magandang umaga, mga Pilipino! And welcome to another episode of the Boleros podcast. No, this is not an error. Yes, I am the only one here on weekday shift here in the Boleros podcast. And we're doing sort of urgent, not really a emergency pod, but an urgent podcast because uh, we had a shocking development in Philippine basketball. We did not win the SEA Games gold medal in men's basketball, with the Philippines losing a tight game to Indonesia for the gold medal. And just for context, this is a big thing because we've been dominating the SEA Games, dominating, and that is not an understatement. We have really been dominating the SEA Games for the last 30, 20 years. I don't know. But this is a shocker, and it deserves an urgent podcast here in the Boleros feed. And I will start off by saying I think this is a good thing. Don't you think? Like a wake up call to the powers that be in Philippine basketball na parang, hey, you can't, you can't underestimate Southeast Asia anymore. The other countries have caught up. And we can't, just send a group of guys suddenly with no preparation and expect to win. This is a shocker. We saw a statement earlier by SBP head Al Panlilio saying that, well, it was an embarrassment. Yeah, they admitted it. Uh, and they kind of apologized and they said that they would prepare more in the coming tournaments. Duh! You should have prepared more! So, ay nako. Uh, very obvious. And now, I think we will get better. I hopefully we will get better. This this is a down. This is the valley already for uh Gilas. This is the pinakababa because SEA Games, we are supposed to be the overall favorite for any SEA Games basketball competition. We are supposed to be the favorite, and we cannot we cannot sugarcoat this loss, saying people were injured. No one was injured. We did not have a preparation time. Whose fault was that? Walang preparation. Kulang sa preparation. Sino may kasalanan nun? Um, Again, this is not to throw shade on the players. I think our players are wonderful. They did the best that they could with the limited time that they had, and they were just outplayed. Now onto the game. Um, it was apparent that uh, Indonesia wanted this game more. Uh, they they played incredible defense. I think their defense was top notch. Uh, and it was apparent also that the lack of preparation, the lack of chemistry with the Philippine team was also apparent. They defaulted to a lot of one-on-one basketball. It's a good thing you Matthew Wright's shots were going in. Uh, it's a good thing we had Junmar, uh, but we were not shooting a lot of three-point shots. Indonesia was shooting it so well, and I think that was the reason why they got so close and even led for most of the second half. They just shot it well. Jawata was launching so many threes, and in the end, Bolden showed his might. Uh, despite Here's one thing though, Chot Reyes. I mean, no disrespect to Chot Reyes. I think he's a great coach. Uh, I think he's a great tactical mind. He commands respect from his players. But come on, Coach Chot, you gotta rest the five that that you played in the second half. For anyone who didn't watch the game, Coach Chot basically ran Kiefer Ravena, 30, Ravena, Matthew Wright, Junmar, and forgot who the other one. I think it was Troy Rosario. Co- Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was Troy Rosario who was the last guy in that five in the second half. Our Pogoy barely played. Motau Tua barely played. Kib Montalvo barely played. And it was apparent that these guys were tired. Kiefer and 30 were huffing and puffing up and down the court. Uh, Junmar was apparently tired. He couldn't get off the ground. Hindi naman talaga na yung nakakatalon si Junmar. Masyado is more of his strength, right? But yeah, it was apparent they were fatigued in the fourth quarter, and Indonesia had more energy. Uh, their pick and roll coverage was great, despite the few pick and rolls that were, how do I call this, run by Gilas. It's uh, it's just apparent that teams have figured out Coach Chot's dribble drive offense, and it's just not gonna work when our opponents are more athletic than us. If we can't get by them. Uh, oh, Sam, what's that? I was
What's
just
up, sir?
Oh, we're
Ano nang
live.
pinag-usapan natin?
I was just going through the game, Gilas, and I my first point was actually I think this was a good thing for
Yes,
Philippine
agreed.
basketball, right? Uh, because wake up call to the powers that be in Philippine basketball. Na, uh, you can't take Southeast Asia lightly anymore. They've caught up. I think you would agree.
Yes, agreed, agreed.
And I went into the statement by Al Panlilio saying na we should have prepared more, we're sorry, ganon. And ako ba, duh, you should have prepared more. What were they, what were they? Were they only put together in 1 week? Ba yun? Or less than a
Ay,
week or 2 weeks before the tournament?
2 weeks before, ang nabasa ko 2 weeks before, they only started like practicing 2 weeks before the tournament. Yeah. But definitely, I think for me, tama naman no, na blame should be on SBP. Like it's an organizational problem or it's a systematic problem. I don't wanna like some people are blaming, let's say, Chot Reyes or the players that didn't make it to the team. I think it has to start from the top, So SBP and the organizers have to do a better job with forming like competitive international teams. Not just
Yeah,
for SEA
and
games, but for all international games.
Yeah, and that was the next point that I discussed. I am not. This is not to throw shade to any of our players or Coach Chot. I think I have great respect for Coach Chot. Coach Chot, I think, is a brilliant coach. He commands respect. Our players are super talented, but nahalata yung lack of preparation natin. I was breaking
Yes,
down the
yes.
game. There there was no chemistry from the Gilas players. We barely ran any pick and rolls. We barely ran plays. We defaulted to a lot of one on one. It was a good thing that Matthew Wright was keeping us in the game for most of the second half. And my latest point was uh, with all due respect to Coach Chot, why didn't he rest the five guys in the second half? I don't know if you watched the game, Sam. He
Hindi.
basically ran Kiefer 30, Matthew Wright, Troy Rosario, and June Mar all throughout the second half. He barely played R. Pogoy, who's his player in TNT. He barely played Kib Montalvo, Motau Tua. They barely played it, and it was apparent in the fourth quarter na pagod na yung lima. And I th- I'm not sure if that's also. I think that's also a lack of preparation. You don't you think na Coach Chot does not trust the guys off his bench? What do you think about that? Because it becomes a trend.
Um,
He against New Zealand, he ran Dwight and 30 to the ground in the second half.
mm,
They were so
mhm,
tired in the fourth quarter.
yeah. Um, I agree. I agree. I think that's one of the factors. To be fair to Chot, I didn't get to watch this game, but I watched all the previous games before this, and I think to be fair, pinahinga naman niya yung guys na yon. In previous games, like my dad and I were talking about it, sobrang binabad niya si Roger Pogoy, si RR Pogoy. Halos
Yeah,
there was a game, halos hindi umupo si Pogoy eh. I forget, it was the game
like
nung Thursday, I think. I forget the team, pero there was a game na talagang hindi niya pinaupo si Pogoy, and I was wondering why. And then like the rest of the stars, Kiefer barely played those games. So to be fair to him, I think he was expecting that he would be um playing his superstars the entire game
his
against
preferred five. Yeah,
Indonesia, yeah. So probably the reason why he decided to rest them in other games. Um but really, like, again, I agree. I have nothing against Shot. I have nothing against the players that were selected. I think every single one of them deserved that spot. Even the cadets like Lebron or si JD
mm,
Tongkab, Isaac Go. They're probably not like the most skilled or talented play options for Gilas, but I think they deserve that spot. Um, I really think it was like a lack of preparation and a lack of planning for SBP. Parang ano yan eh, it's like at work or sa school, 'di ba? Like kahit gaano kapag kagaling, if they ask you to work on a project in like 2 hours or work on a presentation in 2 hours and you're coming from scratch, you're madadala mo siya pero it's not going to be your A plus or it's not going to be your A game. Madadala mo siya. You wouldn't be surprised kung sobrang galing mo talaga. Mabi-B plus mo yung presentation mo, di ba? Di ba ganun tayo nung high school eh. Parang,
yeah,
o cram lang natin to. Kaya natin i-B plus to. Ganyan. Or A minus. Ganun naman tayo eh. Pero, if kalaban mo is someone that prepared for it for 3 years, sabi nila, di ba? 3 years in the making, medyo mahirap
yeah.
to go up against them. And, I mean, in all
Coach
honesty,
Raiko,
silver
man,
naman sila.
Coach
I mean,
Raiko.
in all honesty, silver sila. So, for someone who crammed a basketball team in 2 weeks to get a silver medal, that still says something. Pero obviously, we all expected us to get the gold, and we can't just breeze through. We can't just come in and expect to breeze through all our competitions. I think yun yung I forget who said it eh. One of the players or something. Nasabi nila, Gilas is the Team USA of SEA Games. I think yun yung maling mindset eh. Parang you
Yeah,
can't just assume na you're the best team every time. Like, don't compare yourself to Team USA. I know it's just the SEA Games, pero SEA Games lang to. Pero hindi, you have to come in prepared. It's just like anything you do, 'di ba? Kahit naman silang basketball players, they get to the top because they train every day and they prepare for it. It's just sad na this happened, but to your point, I think it's good that it's happened. I think it's a wake up call for them, and it's super embarrassing for the community and the committee and the organization. So lots of angry Filipino fans out there na calling them to fix fix the system, fix whatever they need to fix. Hopefully they listen this time.
And my latest point, yung before you came in, I was saying I think this is the valley, the lowest point in Philippine basketball in recent years. Uh, would you agree? I mean, here's my point. We have been dominating the Sea Games. We sent
Yes, yes.
we sent college players in the past, and they dominated the Sea Games. And now our first game against Thailand, we almost lost. We used to beat Thailand by 30, 20 points. And now
Yeah.
we really lost to Indonesia in the Sea Games. And we sent professionals, mostly professional basketball players. Would you agree? Is this the lowest point, or you would still go with our drubbing against, or yung the fight against us, the brawl against Australia as our lowest point, or maybe the drubbing during the latest World Cup?
Uh I think yung fight against Australia and this one. Kasi yung fight against Australia, okay lang naman matambakan ka eh, but that was just not professional. Sobrang larong kalye, larong kanto ba to? Street, hindi naman to street ball eh. Alam mo yun? So, that was bad not from a basketball perspective, but from as a Filipino, parang it doesn't matter what
Okay,
sport that was. If you act that way and you carry the flag, I think sobrang nakakahiya yun. But this is definitely at the same, I would say on the same level in terms of like from a basketball perspective. Kasi basketball wise, we are expected to dominate the SEA Games. But that doesn't mean we can come in unprepared, 'di ba? And what's sad, I'm not sure if you brought it up already, pero what's sad is that obviously we had a plan, 'di ba? It was like the 2023 plan. That was the long-term plan. Um and we all know what happened to that plan. And this is
and
the result of that. I mean, since Tab left the program and sort of like broke the chain of that plan or broke that plan, ano yung competitions na sinalihan natin? Ano ba yung ano ba yung against New Zealand? FIBA ba yun? FIBA?
I think those were the Olympic qualifiers, hindi ba?
Qualifiers. Okay. So
Yeah,
Olympic qualifiers and then SEA Games. We both sucked at both competitions, to be honest.
yeah.
We sucked at both. So again, nothing against Coach Chot or the players that played during those games. Um it's an organizational problem, I think, which can be fixed. I'm not trying to
And
call
I
out
guess that
anyone, pero
yung that's a good transition to my next point, yung long-term plan. I kind of like that we were building our young Gilas pool back then. Not just full of take the stars of the PBA, you put them together and put them in an international competition. I kind of like even back then, when Coach Raiko was still the national team coach, when he would the Chris Chu, Marcus Doutet, Mac Barakael teams. I kind of like that,
mhm.
building them up, letting them play together as young players. Then when they eventually mature, you can eventually compete. I want to point out I thought that's what we were going for. With Coach Tab at the helm, he got a lot of young players, the Nieto brothers, 30, Dwight, Ange, JD Tungkab, whoever else, the young players that he got from the college ranks, uh, even sina Kobe, you played under him, one GDL. I thought that was what we were going for, and I think that's what we should be doing. I don't know if you watched it, Sam, or if anyone who's watching us has watched it on Netflix. Have you watched the documentary of Tony Parker?
Hindi pa. Maganda ba?
Yeah, it's pretty nice. And the thing I got from that documentary that I think we could apply to the Gilas program is uh, Tony Parker and his teammates in the French national team. They've been playing together since they
Since
were
they were
teenagers. Since,
kids.
yeah,
Nababasa ko
15,
yan. Oo.
16 years old. They've been together. They're in one school. They play together. They play
Yeah,
all
yeah, yeah.
international competitions. So, sila Nick Batum,
Yeah.
Boris
Me-
Diaw, they've all grown up together. They all know each other's games. And I think we have to apply that same
Yeah.
strategy here. I thought that was the strategy with the young Gilas teams. And it's so disappointing because we always end up going back to uh, the pros. Like, okay, let's go, let's get the stars.
Honestly, baka
What do
nga,
you think, Sam?
yeah, I agree. It's funny. It's good that you mentioned Tony Parker kasi I was also going to mention them, yung program ng France. Kasi I read about that. I think 'di ba may special school for athletes.
Yep,
So teenager ka pa lang, if you're a talented athlete, like you go to that school and that's where you get trained and you really get to know everyone, no. Obviously, like maybe we can't replicate that exactly, pero tama naman. Honestly, I think that was the plan. Like with the, I forget what was it called. Parang basta
yeah.
Road to 2023 or something like
Are
that.
you? That was
23 for
Patreas' plan.
2023 or something. Ano no?
Yung si Chot Reyes yung Road to 2023 eh. Iba ata yung kay Tab eh.
Okay. Okay, whatever. Basta yung plan ni Tabos for 2023 and um I don't want to speculate on what happened between
Yeah.
Tab and the SBP. Pero I mean, if it's true na Tab just wanted to focus on Ateneo, which I'm not buying.
No
I
one
want
believes
that to,
that.
okay, I'm obviously we're not buying that, but we don't want to speculate. If it's true, then why didn't they, sort of like find someone that can continue the program, like find the next person that can
Exactly,
continue the
yes.
program. I felt like masyadong, how do you say, masyadong, I understand na they needed shot for the Olympic qualifier kasi malapit na, 'di ba? During that time malapit na yung Olympic qualifier. Pero parang si Chot na naman, I'm sure kahit si Chot, to be honest, feel ko si Chot ayaw na rin mag-coach eh. Um I think we have
Really?
to,
I, I
I
think
don't
it
know,
wants
I feel
to.
like talaga, I don't know, I feel like they should have just continued that program pa rin and then continue with the cadets.
Yeah,
Um,
ako rin eh.
kasi kasi parang okay, if the problem was Tab, then try to replace Tab, but continue the program. Bakit hindi na-continue yung ganung program? That's what just I find weird. Bakit nga tayo bumalik sa pros, no? Uh but you know what? I think this
Wait.
ties to,
I just have to say, I have no problem with our professional basketball players. I think uh, Junmar,
yeah,
I have no problem. I think he's a great player. But the problem is they don't play together.
they
They
don't play
barely
together,
play
walang
together.
chemistry. I was gonna say, kung gusto na lang nila ng pros, mas maganda pa yung magpadala ka na lang ng isang team eh, yung 'di ba? Yung
Oh,
TNT plus like 3-star players or
exactly.
something, kasi si Chot 'di ba? Or I would pick like sino ba champion? Hinebra or San Miguel plus add ka na lang ng 3 star players para at least may chemistry, 'di ba? At least may onting chemistry naman yung team kaysa yung ganyan. And a lot of a lot of things also happened, but Japet got injured, si uh, Kevin Alas had to back out last minute. They couldn't get Bolick or Dwight Ramos. But alam mo, hindi rin siya pwedeng excuse eh. Kasi to be honest, yung team na pinadala natin, magaling talaga yung team na
Magaling
yun
eh.
eh. And I think
There's so much
I think
talent in the Philippines.
I think given enough time to develop chemistry and learn the system, for sure mananalo yung Pilipinas doon. Pero wala eh. Kaya nga, it's really it's like an organizational problem. It's really not like the coach or the players or anyone else to blame, but it has to be fixed from the ground up. And hindi na pwede yung yung old school thinking. I think we
and
need
and
to
and
put in
and,
new
and,
blood eh.
and this is my next point, Sam. Our hot take or semi-hot take, and I think you would agree because you pointed this out in our when we were chatting. I think the worst thing that happened to Philippine basketball was that World Cup qualifying tournament here in the country back in, I think it was 2013, 2012. I think
Mhm.
that was the worst thing, and including the 2013 World Cup that that we stood toe to toe with the powers of the world and won a single game against was it Senegal? Yeah, I
Senegal?
think. Yeah, I
Senegal?
think it was Senegal. We almost beat Argentina, Puerto Rico, and Croatia. I think that was the worst thing to happen to Philippine basketball because we keep on now 9 years later we keep on sorry it's the 2014 World Cup, the 2013 qualifiers here in the country. Without 9 years later, we're still caught in that moment. We feel like, oh, yung dribble, drive, with shot has gotten us there before. It's gonna get us there again. The style of
Right.
play before, the style where we bring the PBA stars together, worked before. It's gonna work for us again. Oh, what do you think about that? I think you would agree. I mean, the
Yes,
head of our basketball
definitely.
program are still caught up in 2013, 2014. Like
Uh
in that moment, I get it. It's exhilarating. It's one of the we vanquished the Korean curse. Jimmy hitting those threes, Sunny Dale, we all Filipino lineup put back by Pingres. At that moment, it was a great moment to be a basketball fan in the Philippines. But now, 9 years later, putang ina naman, mag-move on na kayo. Magbago na tayo. 'Di ba? With all due respect to Chot, his style of play, even si Marcos doubted chimed in, saying that the the dribble drive offense has been figured out already by our opponents. Marcus Doubted, who played on that team. Uh,
right.
what do you think? Do you think is that the worst that could have happened to Philippine basketball?
Uh yes, I think that's one of it. We're resting on our laurels. Yun yung term, 'di ba? Na it's still we're still so proud of that. Parang we can't let it go. I think it goes back also to like a common issue in Philippine sports, which is um a lot of the people that are managing it medyo quite traditional yung pag-iisip, and
Just say it.
I
They're
don't
boomers.
I don't wanna act like I know anything, but I'm just saying is people have to be open-minded about it. I was like, for example, 'di ba? This is like one big issue na we always talk about sa Telegram or whenever we're chatting. The fact na we don't want our players to play internationally. Like, it's such a big issue if someone wants to play internationally. Parang we wanna disown them. Like, when 30 decided to play in Japan, kailangan pa niya magpaalam sa PBA na maglalaro muna siya sa Japan at hindi muna siya sasali sa draft. And
He
I
wasn't
read
even
na,
drafted in the PBA then.
oo, exactly. And parang there's something there na, oh, if you don't join the draft by this time, like, you might not be able to join ever. So 30 had to like manage that and like say na, oh, I really want to join the PBA pero now's just not the time, I want to be better. The fact na may ganun, is so strange to me and is so backward to me na I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised na iniiwan na tayo ng lahat ng other countries. You know, Korea has NBA draft aspirant. Yung
Yeah.
nakalaban natin yung guy na to eh, 'di ba? They have a
Yep.
draft aspirant. As talking to you about yung women's team ng Vietnam who has I think twins na
Yeah.
players ng
In
women's
the
team ng
NCAA.
Gonzaga and they're solid players.
They were the only
I think
ones scoring for
hindi, may isa
Vietnam in
pa.
that
May
game.
isa pa yung Miles Davis ba yun or something. May isa
Yeah,
pa.
yeah.
May na parang Vietnamese American din. And then, I think it was also Vietnam, yung star player ng men's ng Vietnam na apparently Harvard
Yeah, yung big
player
guy.
siya for Harvard. So, alam mo, like, more and more like countries are developing like good players and tayo gusto natin lahat ng best players natin sa PBA pa maglalaro. I mean, there's something wrong there eh. Again, I don't baka maraming magalit no, pero I'm a fan of the PBA and I want the PBA to have the best product. Syempre gusto ko yung mga best players nandun sa PBA. Gusto ko exciting din yung PBA and I still support it. Nandun yung mga idol ko nung sa UAP, 'di ba? I still want to support them. Pero we have to expand our thinking or open our minds to parang developing our talents and our players and also our coaches. And if yung institutions that are in charge of doing this are still very traditional or very backward, wala talagang mangyayari sa atin. There has to be change on the institutional level. Hindi siya,
True.
kahit magkaroon tayo ng
Preach.
Michael Jordan, kahit magkaroon tayo ng Michael Jordan na Pinoy, kung hindi natin baguhin yung sistema, hindi rin tayo aasenso. So, yun lang naman yung, again, like, ayoko naman na mag, mag-hate. I don't wanna say hateful things about anyone, pero as a Filipino fan of basketball, I believe, and speaking for all Filipino fans, I believe we deserve better than this. Mas excited pa ako sa women's team eh. Parang very
They actually
exciting
play
yung
more
women's team
exciting
ngayon.
basketball. Can you believe
And
it?
it's
The
well
women's team.
coached. It's
Yeah.
well coached. Maganda yung chemistry. Sila naman yon ever since. I don't
They
understand
play
why we
together
can't
on every
replicate that.
tournament. That core group,
Exactly.
since yung sila Bernardino and kung sino man yung mga players doon, there's an Atenean player, I forgot her name. But they
Guiting
play
ko.
together all the
Yeah.
time.
Minalas lang tayo because we were missing our two big stars then like si uh Ani Ma'am, I forget her
Aminam.
last name. Jack,
Uh,
yeah, whatever. And si Hayes.
yeah,
I forget, but both like NU players then. They couldn't make it to the team, so hindi tayo complete, but you know, they dominated. They won the gold even though they lost the last game, but
they can shoot lights out. I love watching them. Sobrang shooter nila. And and they message you, how is it that they play more modern, more exciting basketball than our men's team? Alam mo yun?
sobra.
Man, they were splashing threes left and right and in every game. It's aside from that last game against Malaysia where they won by a last shot from the Malaysian team. But yeah. Anyway, yung siguro to end this podcast, your notes actually your previous statements actually echo the words of Coach Tab when he was interviewed in Eric Menk's podcast. If anyone has not listened to that, I invite you to listen to it. It's pretty good, wherein he says that the Philippines has been the problem with Philippine basketball. It is that it has been successful for so long that they tend to look insular. You know, what's working here is supposed to work since we've been the best in Southeast Asia. and we've been what top three, yung top four in Asia, and you know I think that's it. It just echoes to me. Coach Tab is so spot on. We don't look to anywhere else but the US for inspiration for our basketball program. We think we're the US. As you said, we're not. We're not the
Exactly.
US. We don't have enough height,
Masakit
athleticism, and
masakit
talent.
ulo ko.
Diba? We don't have enough height, athleticism, and talent to uh, form our basketball program based on the United States. Well, we have to look elsewhere talaga. Which is why I'm still a big proponent of someone like Coach Tab uh, coaching this team and heading the basketball program. It doesn't have to be Coach Tab. If you can find someone else, you might think, yung Atrisa tong si Gab, yung Kesa Pro, yung Coach Tab. And honestly,
Goldwyn
anyone.
Monteverde. Go,
Oh, like,
Goldwyn Monteverde.
Uh, I said this siguro off air in one of our podcasts. Heck, I'd be happy with Alden Ayo yung coaching our national
Alvin
team.
Ayo.
I think he's a brilliant
Or
coach
si
despite,
ano? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
having questionable decisions, but I think he's a brilliant coach. So, try something new, Philippines. The to do the powers that be in Philippine basketball. Try something new. I think our points from this urgent pod. I call this an urgent pod because it's not emergency. It's urgent. The next, the lower level. So yeah, in this urgent pod, I think that's what echoes. Uh, Try something new. Uh, Build them from pag
The
college pa
ground up.
lang. Yeah, ground up. You can't build from top down. And pros, and then bahala na yung kung sino yung maging star sa PBA, yung sasali sa national team natin. We can't we can't do that. And I think for me, yung for Sam it's a tie. Yung lowest point na Philippine basketball is the brawl in Australia, and this one for me this is the low because this is the lowest point because to lose in Southeast Asia where we are supposed to be kings when just 3 years ago we beat our opponents by 30 points. And now we're the ones losing. I think this is the lowest point. Uh, and if you have no more input, Sam, I think we can end this podcast. And to anyone who listens to our almost 30 subscribers now, to our almost 30 subscribers
Yeah.
now, thinking of naming non-UAP topics that are out of bounds episodes. What do you think about that? And maybe you could share some ideas that you have. So Sam, do you have any other things yung last words for this episode?
Um I think you pretty much covered everything. To our listeners, 30 listeners, if you have comments, suggestions on what Gilas or SBP can do to right the ship, please share in your thoughts. We'll take a look at it. And then, yeah, if you have suggestions on topics that we can talk about while we wait for the next UAAP season, please don't be afraid to share. Don't forget our next UAAP podcast will be drafting the best UAAP players and creating our own the best UP players and creating our own UP super team. So um, check that out
A
this
UP
coming weekend.
fantasy draft. Check it out.
UP Fantasy Draft.
Coming
Yeah.
soon. Coming soon. All right.
All right.
Good night,
Thanks.
everyone. That is
Thanks,
it for
everyone.
our weekday
See you.
shift. How do I stop